Hello,
Hey,
good morning.
morning.
So, do we have a visitor today? We have a guest?
Yes, we do. Leslie's joining us today. Shall we share this out? Good
Hello,
morning.
good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning. How are
How
you
are you?
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Kindly share the event to your pages and to your personal pages. We do the necessary.
So, what's our topic today?
Guilt
Guilt
and
and
shame.
shame.
Interesting. Sounds exciting. Would you like to introduce the topic, Dr. Julia?
While I'm doing this, do you mind introducing it?
Please, Leslie, introduce the topic.
Yes, for me, guilt is the feeling that we did something wrong in the specific thing. But shame is like we feel bad for our own being. So, in my opinion, shame relating to like we feeling that we are not good enough, we are imperfect, is relating to the perfectionism. And I think if you feel everything happened for a reason, so there's nothing to you shouldn't let the guilt and the shame be your limiting things in your life. For example, if like I have many plants in my garden, and then I watering the plant every day, like morning, afternoon, evening. But I found out that later that the plant, this kind of plant didn't like much water. So it's too late. The plant already died. The root has been rotten because of a lot of water. So I I feel bad that I like spending a lot of time on nurturing this plant, spending quite a sum of money to buy it, and like dedicating my time to nurture the plant. So so then I realized that there's nothing I can do with that. I have to stay at present and accept what already happened and accept myself the way I am, because I didn't have knowledge. I didn't know that um, I didn't learn enough knowledge about how to take care of the plant. So it's not the past that we drew in and feeling sad and miserable for all the mistake I have done. So instead of that, I see what in front of me, what I can make it happen, so I can learn the lessons that already passed. So that's of the life learning process. So I learned that okay, next time I shouldn't water the plants a lot. So maybe every 3 days, something like that. Then later I can be better.
May I ask you a question? Thank you for sharing. You mentioned two words. One, you say about um, things happen for a reason. You use the expression like we don't feel uh, guilty if we know everything happens for a reason. Number one. Number two, you also mentioned about um, you water the plants, and maybe you water more than the plant requires, but it's already too late because the plant already died, saying that you didn't know that. So I have two questions on this. Number one is how to accept or how to access that everything happens for a reason. I- If we do accept or understand that, does that make us feel different regarding shame or guilt? And number two, what's the effect of we being ignorant or something that we didn't know and we didn't do it properly or correctly, so the plants died? How does that affect on the on the guilt and shame? So we start with number one. How is uh, knowing or understanding that everything happens for a reason, like you mentioned, how does that um, affect the sense of guilt and shame?
About that line, everything
Uh,
happened for a
y-
reason.
yes.
Yes. I believe that whatever happened is always good. So the incident or the event that happened is meant to happen. So it have something negative, not negative. We can learn something from it. It will give us some advantages, some benefits. So it depends on the intelligence we have that we can observe and notice about things that we can learn from any incident or event that happened. I believe that everything's happened is always good. So whatever that impact come to you, that's a spiritual growth that will happen, and you can grow and you can develop and you can learn and utilize the thing that you learn from that specific incident that happened. So there's nothing to be sorry. You can sorry, you can allow yourself to feel, but later you have to forgive yourself, because you forgive everyone but yourself usually. Then the person you should give importance is yourself. So guilt and shame is very dangerous. It makes you not present. So I think we just need to appreciate everything that happened and move on. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And number two, regarding not knowing, how does that affect the guilt and the shame aspect?
All the effect. Okay. When I feel shame or I feel guilt, I feel powerless, and I feel that I have no control at all. I have to sometimes, if I feel not confidence in myself, I don't want to go out and see anyone because I feel shame of my look, or I feel shame of the quality that I have. Then it's made me setting up the wall, the barrier for me to connect with people. So when I feel shame, I am not at present. I always with myself and talking to myself, and usually it's badly. So when you feel shame, you're not at present. You not interact with the person who in the front of you. So the negative side effect of that is that it make you, it contain you, and it's limited you. You can expand yourself more than that and become successful or whatever you would like to do. But with shame or guilt, you have fear, and then you believe that you are not good enough, you are not uh, deserve to get love, to be cherished, something like that.
Dr. Julia, I have to excuse myself just a second. Can you take over here? Just 1 second, please.
I actually think, hi, Leslie, good morning. Sorry, I was like just making sure the administrative aspects are done. I totally think that you have framed it so well. And mm, I would also like us to discuss, like, when we have guilt and shame, what is actually happening? You know, what is actually happening when guilt and shame arise in people? What 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 are the processes that happen? What do you think is happening in a person when guilt and shame comes up? When you say feel sorry, why is it that this feeling of apologeticness to others or ourselves, why is that happening?
I think we are not like when I feel shame, I am not at present. I always thinking about the past event. I feel sorry that if I could go back and do something better, I would have done it better. Something like that.
So
So
that
always
means
past.
feeling sorry for something that was not done well or correctly. So for guilt and shame to happen, there must be some notion of right and wrong, good or bad,
Ah,
isn't it?
yes.
And so when usually, what are the situations where guilt happens? It's like not only ourselves, it's like we feel guilty and we feel shameful because something is happening, because it's in our mind, it's not right, it's not good. But usually, how is it used, guilt and shame?
Has been used.
Yeah, how is it used? Sometimes we use these feelings, we provoke even the sense of guilt, let's say in children or colleagues or adults and all that. What is the mechanism that's going on there? What's the function? Eddie, what do you think?
I used to hear my teacher say things like, shame on you, you didn't do your homework. So that means that I'm supposed to feel bad about myself because maybe I didn't do my homework. So the word attached to that is irresponsible, for example.
Mm. And
So
for children
if
also,
a
right?
teacher does that in front of a class, then maybe it'll cause a sense of not like, I don't know what's the word opposite of dignity, undignified or not.
Shame, feel lonely, terrible, like
Yeah,
yucky, yucky, that
like
suck.
you are unacceptable because you
Mm.
didn't do your homework.
Reject.
So the 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 word shame in many cultures it's used as a form of control, usually from a higher power down below. Or maybe if we're talking about horizontal um, relatings, it could be a form of outcasting people from the same group,
Mm.
you know.
Also about power, right? It's like when we uh, cut out people or reject people, resist people, it's also to consolidate who belongs and who doesn't. But beyond power kind of purposes, sometimes guilt and shame is also, like you said, your teacher uses it for educational purposes, right? Like to teach, to teach boundaries of acceptance, maybe for maybe for the safety and security of children, or something like, Shane, put on your clothes. You cannot go out without your pants. Like, oh man, don't scratch your butt. You know, shame. What is parents do that for? What purpose? It's like to teach appropriateness, boundaries. Like in Chinese, we have this saying that, you know, in education we teach li lian shi. So li, politeness. I think that in Asian cultures, I think Korea might also share the same saying, like li, politeness, yi, justice, lian, um, compassion, chi, shame. Shame, like knowing what is right and wrong, and knowing what is shameful to do or not, what is virtuous or not. So actually it has the mechanism of conscientizing people as well. It's like kind of like a conscientizing force.
It's
Guilt and
interesting
shame.
you brought this up because it comes with values, family values too. It comes with how to behave in society and things like that. And then how much of that is taking our authenticity away, or can we find a way to be authentic within that the
That's
platform,
interesting.
right? So then people, as life goes on, as they start to be more and more conscious about who they are and aware of who they are, then people come to the point where, do I belong here? I don't fit in. I think I'm a failure because I cannot comply to what everyone wants me to do, and I'm a failure. So are we a failure because the more authentic we are or genuine, and then we are not able to fit in with all these values that are imposed since we are kids? Would that generate any form of condition or affect our health, perhaps? What
Very
do you think?
interesting question. It's a very interesting question because, you know, we have been talking about coming to presence, authenticity, and so on, and for the person to like be free enough to express ourselves in a powerful and effective way, to treasure the uniqueness of the person. But what Eddie was talking about just now also, like, mm, the impact. In fact, it can be twofold. I see that probably we can quickly say that it calls us out of presence sometimes if we dwell in past or become aware of collective uh, or what is good or virtuous or certain rules or standards. But the interesting part is, let's put it into the discussion. Like, it's supposed to be a conscientizing force to bring to presence, conscientizing, like bring to presence and awareness, what is safe, what is good, what is humane, for example. So I think that's true, that shame, that the 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 virtuous ones, or the, you know, the holy one, the sages and all that, they propagate in very all the time. But so there is a difference, and I'm wondering, and I want to make it a little bit subtle now, like point out the subtlety, in a sense that when we call to presence the collective, uh, and we neither do we want to throw out like values as in something that is all conditioning. In fact, let's say we unpack values, right? At the root of it, might be something that's very primal, that is like a human nature, that is natural, like love, that we say, if we peel off everything, there's all this, there's only love and there's compassion and so on. In fact, values exist in society also to point to that humanity beyond aspects of control, beyond aspects of organization, authority, and all that hierarchy. Like for example, it's very different to say that, you know, we should feel shame because we have been unkind to a brother, or we should feel shame because you didn't um, respect me because I have a title and you don't, and you should put chopsticks in a certain way for me on the table because I'm your superior. It's a kind of like a different thing. And yeah, so if we look at it in a nuanced way, then how would this discussion go, you know?
I want to go deeper into, not go too general on the society or the values, because the effect of this, it's much more intimate, much more organic than we see apparently.
Yeah.
Guilt is one of the things that has caused me a lot of pain. it, 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 it holds me back from moving forward in terms of, am I a good son, and am I a good friend or a brother? These things hold me back strongly, and it's like many times invisible, but the pain is there, and that guilt stays if we don't work it out.
Absolutely.
And I must say that a lot of my guilts, it took me many years, really many years, to work them out and dissolve.
Mm.
There were people I wanted to apologize and say sorry to, but they passed away already. And if we think that there's an action that it is required in order to work the guilt out, but they pass away, for example, then what kind of force or strength or maturity we have to work these things within us? So a few years back, I went for um, a session with people who are very much connected to nature. They they were doing a session called Ayahuasca, and they bring up roots and plants from Amazon, and they make a tea. And when you take this tea, for example, um, everything from inside that has been kept silent, basically since you were born, just comes out. Things you did wrong when you were a kid, and maybe you, I don't know, you were not a good son, or a lot of things. All these things surface. And why did I go for that? Because I've been to psychologist sessions and counseling, but no matter what, sometimes we may not remember everything that's like a micro guilt here, micro guilt there, from which age, from which period of time. So how to cleanse from all that, how to untie all these knots from the past events. So I went for this session, and it was amazing because at that time I was able to see everything that was holding me back, and the pain is excruciating. It's like I'm gonna die kind of pain, because everything just comes out, everything that we've been like bearing within us. everything that caused our pain and maybe we ignored came out. But the thing is, if we don't evade, if we stay there, maybe there is a way. But if we go crazy and desperate, we might not come back to sanity, perhaps, but we usually do. So, yeah, it took me many years. Not only those kind of approaches, but also meditation. When feeling arise, when we are meditating and we just observe, we note and let it go, and we don't react to them, then that means that we're just present to those things, no matter what it is. So, what I would like to share with our viewers and everyone here is that guilt is something very strong, it's something very hard to let go, but we must work it out because on the long run, it may cause some kind of a disease. Could it be cancer or depression or anxiety or maybe even some sexual disorders, many things. So in a holistic perspective, it's not only emotional, but it also will affect our health too. So I want to ask you guys, what do you guys think that do you have any experience where guilt actually affected your daily lives or your health, for example?
Sure.
Would you like to share?
Sure.
I couldn't sleep. Okay.
Go ahead. Mm.
Yeah. In my case, when I feel guilt, I feel like sorry for what I have done. I make mistakes. Sometimes I cannot sleep. I have insomnia. And then I couldn't eat. And I am not present. My day was like very gloom. And I couldn't participate with people correctly. I look unhappy. And sometimes I really like, before we having a period, right? Sometimes we feel irritated, like we feel upset easily, something like that. So something that slightly a little thing that people done maybe offend me, and I get like reaction very fast and usually in the negative way, something like that. This is my case.
Surely. I agree. Tons of opportunities to feel guilty and horrible and burdened and especially the guilt of, let's say, life roles. I mean, I've done things like leave a perfectly stable and well-paying job and for the reason that might not be understood by society or family, like why and why, what is this self-searching thing, and only I knew that I had to do it, but there is a lot of people that I love that I had to explain to, and then the reasons are never sufficient. For example, I had to leave a marriage that was not uh, no longer connecting, and I had to like take more than 10 years to come to terms with leaving, and yet even when leaving, it is still having, so it's for me there was a time that I felt it's less about me, but it's like more about explaining to everybody around me, like, oh, there was once I remember I went to a class. I was feeling perfectly at peace, like, okay, finally I made a decision. Finally, I just want to move on with life. And my uncle just came and he was trying to do the right thing, like being empathetic, but I mean, rather than to talk, he was like teary and he hugged me, and half the time I'm feeling like I'm fine. It's like, so my attention is like less here, but I'm half the time trying to make everybody else okay about how I am, how they regard whether I'm okay or not. Like even my daughter was telling me through the process, she was saying, Mom, It's like, I'm okay, but everybody's like treading around me. That's love. That's love. I told her that's love. It's all right. Well, just take it lightheartedly and just go on. But the thing is, so the thing is, lots of opportunities. So long as we take on any roles or we've tried it, we say yes to life and we say yes to taking on an adventure. If it's like if we are all alone and there's nobody else coming with us, then maybe the dialogue is within ourselves and the accountability is within ourselves. But so long as there are people with us, so long as there's suddenly even a friend, a partner, a lover, whatever, then suddenly the world and the accountability changes. And then there's the opportunity for us to feel bad about something, for example. But beyond all these personal experiences to make valid that I know what I'm talking about. Like I also want to curiously look at this, that when we feel guilt and shame, usually co-arising at the same time are some other emotions. There is usually in the matrix of that moment anger, disappointment, frustration, accusations. Usually it co-arises with these things.
I would like to share something about this. Thank you, Dr. Julia, for sharing all your personal experience regarding guilt and shame. Guilt is something, and shame is something that can dwell in our breath, in our actions, in a very permanent and subtle way. You know, I don't want to talk about permanence or impermanence, but the thing is, we live now in groups and society in a world where if we do something great, we get glory. If we fail, we are ashamed and generate guilt. Why am I saying this? Because we have an expert here on manifestation, which is Dr. Leslie. And I would like to say that what are we manifesting if we are doing something to avoid guilt? I cannot fail my family, so I must make my staying here or working here successful. I won't fail. So what is the fruit of that? When we do something because we're avoiding something, avoiding guilt, avoiding to be ashamed, how does that nurture our ego or our pride? You know what I mean? How strong does that become? So it's like, no, I have to stay in this temple, in this retreat. I will not give up. I will stay here for 10 days silent and meditate because I don't want to fail. I can do this. So what's the root origin of this statement? You know what I mean? I don't want to fail, you know, doing things because we don't want to be defeated later or ashamed or we can do it. We don't want to feel guilty that we miss work for 10 days. So what's the seed that we plant for doing things to avoid guilt? What is that? So how many things in our daily lives are we doing to have people proud of us or avoiding us to be ashamed or not guilty, absolved? I'm saying this because maybe, just maybe, just maybe, 90% of things we do unpresently, like unaware, is it to avoid guilt? Is it for quest for glory? What is it? How does it affect our manifestation, Dr. Leslie?
Leslie, we are all manifestors, and it's, in fact, the biggest one is here. He calls himself a manifestor all the time. so you know, I know that life is all about manifesting, and we manifest things also from where we are. So tell us more. It's like when we are in guilt and shame, it's like, how are we creating our universe?
If we plant these seeds, what is gonna blossom as manifestation, Dr. Leslie?
I think when we feel guilt or shame, we already label ourselves as a person who are not good enough, who never gonna make it, something like that, who cannot make it, who are not always unready, something like that. So that's limit the possibility that can happen in our own. Actually, possibility is limitless, unlimited. So about the guilt and shame, I was thinking about something else when like listen to you two speak about all the things, and the thing that come up in my head is like when I was a child, I didn't like to take a shower. So my mom, she like asking me to take a shower in the morning all the time because I have to go to school. Then she don't know what to do, so she dragged me to the front of the house and put the long stick and hit me to make me feel shame. So I thinking about what Dr. Lim said about society and like how mom would like to train me to act appropriately. Like we're supposed to take a shower before going out for our hygiene and cleanliness, something like that. So I think shame and guilt is the also mechanism like happen that to make us safe and make us blend in with the society, like make us more accepted. And I don't know, when we feel shame, we feel that we are unsuccessful. So like Dr. Eddie said, when we feel shame, right, we always distract. We are not staying with that bad feeling of shame, feeling of guilt. We try to avoid, distract ourselves doing something else to prove that we are successful and people can accept us. So about manifestation, we don't need to do that kind of thing to prove ourselves. We just be and feel, and it's all about feeling good. So if we wanna like we want wealth, we want to be rich, we just feel that and be there and feel that we are abundant, and money flow easily into our to us effortlessly, something like that. It have to start with being before having. So I think that everyone is deserve to receive whatever they want, and everyone deserve to accomplish and success in whatever they choose to do. So there's nothing to be afraid of.
Something we've been all mentioning here in our sharing is that what I'm observing is that it seems like shame or guilt is something contagious, right? It can go from our parents to us. Is it correct? It's
I mean,
almost
that's a
like
good point.
a viral system,
You
isn't it?
you can see it like that, and
Hmm.
the mechanism that I observe is something like you know, it's not from outside in. The true workings of how control takes place, you know, is from inside out. is when we have swallowed our parents whole, when we have swallowed our bosses whole, and they live in us. And the governance works in that way when that value system is us already. So sometimes when we are resisting and we think that the forces come from outside, actually it is not. The persons might already be dead and they might already not exist. It might be something that they said last week and they got angry last week and today is no longer so. They may be out of our life now, but yet why is it that feeling is so alive? It's because they are inside us. It's our perception and the place that we have given the importance in our psyche is like who we are. So when people ask me about this guilt, like, as if there's something that they need to purge from the outside, like something is attacking them from the outside, and they say it's him, her. But actually, when everything just soothes and when the clarity sets in, it is really until and unless the person says, I am such, this is my values too. That's why I am angry with this and I'm fearful of it. So the thing is, until we realize that we have let that voice live in us and taken importance, until then, everything is a futile fight.
Dr. Lim, may I ask you a question? When your relative came to you with the teary eyes because had a possible failed marriage in his perspective,
Mhm.
and you see that that shame or guilt may kick in, for example, but you're okay inside because you're present, let's say. I want to ask you, like, your relative is quite old, I would say, right? Like
Okay.
another
Yeah.
generation, right? And maybe your family share that value that the core of family and that value system, let's say. I want to ask you then, you mentioned about your daughter. So knowing these things, being aware of these things about shame and guilt, I want to ask you how did this affect now with all this vision? How are you raising your child differently, let's say, or adapting to your awareness of guilt and shame? And how does that differ now from how you were raised by your parents, for example, traditionally speaking? How is it?
Different, and it's still happening, and so interesting because, for example, just now I was trying to pull out this shame and guilt originally, devoid of control. It might be even a conscientizing process where you call to presence humanity, right? So that core of it, I also don't want to throw it out with the bathwater, but it's how we do it. Like, for example, like Leslie, you say that your mother was caning you when you're running around not bathed, like no ladylike smelly little thing or something like that, right? And so, but it's not to say that she's wrongdoing that. She's probably a young mother trying to learn how to teach, but then she has swallowed her parents whole and she used the parents technique even without thinking, bypassing the awareness, right? So for us, we are half the time I'm dealing with myself with my parents swallowed inside me, and my daughter with me swallowed inside her and my parents swallowed inside her. We are interacting and dealing with this reality with these multivariate perspectives. And so how do we do that? Like, for example, when my uncle came to me, why is it that I was frustrated. I felt a little bit like embarrassed that I have to deal with that situation. I have to I hate to be seen as helpless and that someone feels sorry for me. The thing is, but the awareness in me probably was that, okay, we are all operating from our conditioning. We are all operating from scripts. So if I can see that we are all operating from scripts and various scripts living in us, then I will just take the humanity. So I will take him and his love, and I will see him and his love, and I will not take the guilt then. It's like he's not trying to make me feel guilty, for example. And so how then do I raise my daughter, for example? She will, the number one platform for raising a child, or even like walking with friends, okay, walking with people who are, wanting to be conscious and aware together, like two of you, is that we will talk. First of all, there must be a platform for communication. And for me as a mom, I will ask her, like, how's your day? You know, that thing that happened, if there's a uncomfortable situation, or I see her say, sometimes agree with my mom saying that, yeah, mom, give an example. Like my mom will say to me, like, oh, you have, you're doing this new job now. How much are you paid for this? Are you being paid well? Then, and are you saving the money? For example, huh? Then my daughter by the side, she will be empathizing with the grandma, and she can see that I'm getting a little bit frustrated, like, man, why are you going there? And then she sees my discomfort, she sees my mother's asking, and then she says to grandma, she'll say, yeah, grandma, don't worry, I will tell mom to save the money, for example. And then I'll frown at her like, man, it's like you're selling in on reinforcing grandma's worldview. Why don't you just tell her, confront that worldview or something? In my head, I will be thinking like that. So that situation is then a rich moment. Of course, there is me being the human and triggered, and their grandma being unaware of her impact in parts, but I can see her love. And then so we talk about it. So I say, hey, let's go for a walk. And then we're walking up, man, we talk about it. Like I say, hey, what's because I can see that she is really absorbing, let's say, my mother's concerns. She's really worried about me because my mom is worried about me too. And then so we talk about it because I see her that, and her fear may be operating some level, to some level, there must be some confusion. Like, should I feel ashamed that my mom is not earning like $10,000 now, and then she's only taking in maybe like half or less, you know? Um, should I be thinking like that? I think there's some shame operating. So I pull it out and then we talk about it. I say that, hey, you worried about me? It's like, where did that come from? Are you absorbing her? Or, can you see? So what are you seeing from grandma at that instant? Then she'll say, she cares for you, mom. She loves you. I say, yeah, I know that too. But, it's like, how do we tell her? She says, keep telling her, and we talk about it and say that, I observe that are you feeling ashamed of mom that I'm not earning like more than 10K a month now? Then she says, no, but I do feel a bit um scared. Like I feel like not very secure. I said, hey, how then we talk about like very practical things like how much do you need to survive anyway? Are you afraid that mom doesn't know how to earn money or something like that? Then we'll take it like lightheartedly, but bringing that awareness to practical ways, and not to run away from imprinting of the world. It's like the world will come and condition us all the time. We will swallow up people all the time and let them live inside us all the time. But it's the making aware that there's something's operating. So because of that, conditioning is a big topic in our conversations all the time. We'll always like talk about it. Like, hey, you sound like grandpa there, you know? She says, yeah, and I'm proud of that. Asian value, and then she'll joke, you know. So we have that awareness to remind and talk about it. And she knows that I would like her to live in a free, unconditioned way, but I also want her to have that humanity and to take whatever comes as a reminder of humanity. I also want her to have that courage of looking at all these things coming at her and letting it slide away and not impact her. I want her to be like that. And that can only happen when we have a real connection and we have an ongoing conversation about such things. And that happens with my daughter. It also happens with my dear friends. We talk about it and remind each other all the time.
This reminds me of this conference I went to, similar to what you guys call landmark. I in this leadership retreat, I was able to observe my fears, my angers, my what encourages me, and things like that. So after the retreat, I went home and I asked my parents, "Do I make you proud? Am I okay with you guys?" And I said, "Whatever it is, I love you guys and I forgive you guys." My parents were like, "Are you crazy? What are you forgiving us? Did we do something wrong?" I said, "I just forgive you." And every time I call my parents, I say, "You were great, best parents." And I'm very grateful. And I asked them, "Am I a good son for you guys? Did I ever make you guys proud?" They say, "Sure, of course you did." I said, "Thank you. It's not really important, but I want to make peace with you guys." And, forgiveness is something that for me is one of the things that we practice, whether someone did something right or wrong against us. It's not about taking things personal, but just being able to forgive, even though that person did something that you might think it wasn't on purpose or was on purpose. Why is this relevant? Is this present? Are you aware of what you're saying, Eddie? Yes, I am. You know why? Because nowadays, having this view of shame and guilt, and this can spread like a pandemic. I'm very careful. Even my language changed. When I talk to people and they share with me something happened in their lives, I say, okay, I stop giving tips and opinions and advice. I'm more like, I, the one thing I stop saying, you should have done this. You have to do like this. Why? Because if that person didn't, is there a reason for regret, for example? Do they feel ashamed they didn't do it in such a way? So, in terms of integrating and creating space and compassion, there's no such thing as you should have done like this or you you didn't do like that. I usually allow people to be, and there's no shame on that. There's no should do this or should be like that. So in my conversation nowadays, something that changed a lot is inviting people to observe, you know, and we can also talk in a way that may not promote or generate that maybe they did something wrong or maybe they should do something right about something, you know. What do you think, Dr. Leslie, about that?
You mean we have like empathy, be with that person and um, in the like sharing their shame, their guilt, but we have sympathy not to suffer from it. We just be there with them, making sure that they know that they are not alone, and then you don't give any advice, you just be there with them, something like that.
So do you think by doing that we might,
We need to use the deep listening.
does it help people to feel not feel guilty or ashamed perhaps?
We have to make sure that they know that they are okay to feel that way, but then they have to move on. It's okay to give time to that shame and guilt, but then later you have to learn from it. And I think nothing is perfect, so they have to embrace their imperfection and accept things the way they are. That how they know that they are mature enough, something like that.
But if we say you have to accept the way you
You
are,
have
and then they don't, do you think they'll feel guilty or
oh
ashamed?
no, they are perfect already. so um what is past is already past, so we will just need them to just give themselves a time to hear and accept the feeling that around them are arising in that moment, and then let them know that we are willing to share the moment with them, to have the like supportive, be back up, and know that the universe have their backs, so things will always working out for them.
So I have a question for you girls. There is then a way to coexist and promote a world that does not generate shame and guilt. Is that correct?
Can you say again, please?
Sorry, Dr. Lim. I think you're muted. I couldn't hear what you said.
I said, of course. But did you want to finish something first before I hop in and say something? You
No.
okay.
Dr. Leslie was sharing, and I was just asking.
Well, Dr.
So,
Eddie, let
how
me just
how to live in a world where we can promote shameless and guiltless, like free from that, and just be ourselves without
there.
making it wrong.
First of all, I think our awareness extends not only to ourselves first, and also how we relate to people and how we use. Are we aware that we are even using the mechanism of guilt and shame to relate? And I really want to say this, that, I also have gone to moments of things, processes that are helpful to crack us open, like they say, breath work, shamanistic breath works. You mentioned ayahuasca. There are moments like landmark, but moments like that might be, people might be waxing lyrical about things. It all can be a moment, and you have the strength of numbers to make you do something that you're so afraid of doing. But I think the ultimate exciting moment to work with is really now what's happening. Every practical moment where it's so messy, whether it's, all the triggers coming up, all the people around you behaving badly, or everybody is in COVID fear, fear of future, everything, so much things around. In this messiness, the 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 presence of who we are, how we are interacting with ourselves, and second, how we are relating and how we are using the mechanism of guilt and shame, and how to not only learn how to give feedback, and that means call out our loved ones when they are using that mechanism to relate, and how to call out ourselves on that, and how to take feedback on that. I think I go by these, because if we only know how to be fragile and vulnerable, we will never be able to confront that true liberation that we so desire. It is only when we are able to take feedback, receive feedback, help each other out in this conscious state, and also allow that humanness and that humanity, that human messiness to surface and to float away, and yet still keep on coming back, keep on showing up, keep on being present. I think that's our job, and uh, that's something that we should do relentlessly.
You said something very interesting right now. Like, people are in fear, but honestly speaking, nobody's in a real immediate danger of life and death right now. I mean, at least us here. So we learn to fear, especially because we watch a lot of TV and news and things like that. But one thing is that if we are out there in the savannah and we don't have any guns or anything and there are lions around, then the fear is real, right? We're really in a risk that we might die. We might get attacked by animals. But in society nowadays, we have security, we have condos, we can lock our doors and things like that. But we might be facing more fear than the actual danger of survival. Would you say that the base of that fear could be guilt and shame?
I, I am not quite get it. Like because of the COVID, you feel shame and guilt.
Good
Like that
point. We have a lot of pressure now.
pressure.
A lot of videos, like funny videos or accusing videos, and all kinds of videos about wearing masks, for example, being responsible or irresponsible, or
Mm,
don't come to my space without wearing a mask.
yes.
I'm not talking about promoting not wear a mask. I'm not there. What I'm saying is, could the system be using shame to make people wear masks, for example? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Could the system be using fear or guilt? Oh, I should have done that. I didn't do that. And now we couldn't avoid this. And this happened. Is it possible that the system could be using guilt or shame to as a tool, perhaps, to get things done?
Yeah. I was thinking that one event happened to me. I drove my auntie to Bangkok to see the doctor, and then she really need to use the restroom like immediately. So I went to the petrol station on the way to Bangkok, and there's no near area to park near the restroom, but she really need to get to the restroom at the early as possible. So I park on the handicap parking, and then like she's pretty old, she's like more than 65, so she's walking down to the restroom, and then I was waiting there, I forgot. And then a guy, he walked past my car and he gave me the look of like, shame on you, something like that. So I think this is the way they organize like how people should behave. Like it's social conduct. You are not supposed to park at the handicap parking, because if somebody like uh, with the handicap condition come, they really need to park there.
Then I want to ask you, if we talk about social conduct and shame, so that maybe society or the system, whatever it is, can control us or have population in a way they desire us to be, what would be the long-term effects on us mentally or emotionally if we are constantly ashamed or constantly avoiding to be ashamed?
When you feel shame, the focus go to ourselves all the time. We don't want to look bad in the eyes of other people. So I think when you are focused only yourself, not mention that it's observing yourself. It's like give all focus to yourself instead of to the person out here, out there in the front of you. It's like you are not present. You always want to look good in the eye of other people. And if it happens constantly, you lose the connection with people.
Yeah, it goes back to, let's say, Leslie, I think I would take it the same way. Like I will focus on myself and my reaction and responses. When, let's say, the man gave me the eye or the look, rather than to get defensive about it or to get angry or whatever, maybe then I'll remember the humanity of his action, and I'll just take that, and I'll just see that, and I just might drive the car away. Or if I have the opportunity and say that I'm waiting for handicap coming back, or but the thing is, when we see it already, and then yet we see that there is a lot of we do see that people might be bound up in some things. How we respond will also aggravate, or we could help to dissipate in whichever capacity that we are in. So if we want to do whatever action, as I think all of you are leaders in your own right, or anyone has an accountable leaderly role to ourselves, basically too. It's like how gentle and how kind and how much in humanity are we in talking to ourselves and others, and do we also operate in guilt and shame? And when just now I say co-arising emotions of guilt and shame, anger, disappointment, hurt, anger, that, I mean, sometimes it might be simplistic to say that, but usually it is so, usually. So when these things arise and we use anger as a mechanism to cause guilt and shame, it's not all the time like that, but if you use anger to cause guilt and shame, and you go on to do that in order to make people behave, how effective would you be as a leader? Nobody will be following behind. They might follow when you are watching, but when you are not watching, they will all be like to you, right?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't want to put that as a rule because in Brazil, for example, we have a lot of pastors, Christian leaders that operate very successfully within their view of success, working with the followers, only managing that guilt and fear, the shame. So um, I don't want to generalize that everybody might think this way or that way or react this way or that way. And this also reminds me of one saying from Morpheus in Matrix. He says that if we are not compliant to the system might react and protect itself even with their lives, you know.
Absolutely.
So when you come to someone's space or reality and question their fidelity to that view of compliance, and if they're not compliant, therefore they'll be ashamed or they might feel guilty of it. We have to be very careful about that, because maybe that guilt and shame is the one thing, the one column that keeps the reality structured.
The reality, what the word it didn't come
Structured.
across.
Maybe the shame and guilt is the one thing that keeps their reality structured
Oh,
as a
sure,
column. Yeah,
absolutely. In
so
fact,
this is not really about
yeah.
being right or wrong, or maybe they are living shame and guilt, and we have to wake them up from it. No, it's not about that. But many times, I think it's kind to allow them be, just allow them be the way they are, even with all the truth and vision and all the sublimity that we might feel or think that we are. Sometimes just, just let it be.
I think
Uh,
that was what I was trying to say when you hopped in, because I'm saying that the only one who can govern anything in whichever capacity that we are operating from is ourselves. So when we broach and we see, I mean, we always have a choice to manage things, and so long as we are calling on guilt and shame as a method of managing people, or even in relating in relationships and all that, to elicit certain behaviors, then we have to pause and remind ourselves not to do that. And yeah, because it's not viable. It's so the only governing, we do it ourselves first, and that has a very very positive effect. So if we talk about manifestation, then let that manifest, then let that kind of tonality that comes from you, from us, manifest. And not so, and I would think, rather than to say everything as a rule, we just let people be. Fine, yeah, I will also let people be, but sometimes in interaction there are opportunities that arise, that we can talk about things, and why not? So long as there's no fear operating in me, let's say as a mom or as a friend, and say, hey, we have to learn how to give feedback and take feedback. And take feedback means whatever other people, deep listening. Look, Leslie said, when people tell us things, they are basically, yes, they are always like talking about themselves first and foremost and their perspectives. So we listen. And whatever that is for me to reflect, if whatever that will take to my own improvement, I will take it. And whatever that doesn't, then what it just passes through me without it being a trigger per se. I think that if we can learn how to take and give feedback like that, then we are a connected universe. Mm.
Dr. Leslie, do you have an example on in your daily life, in your work or family, where people use shame and guilt to operate, or do you have experience on observing yourself maybe that you were operating that way and then you stopped suddenly? Do you have any example, something like that?
I was thinking about like in around my city, like when we go to the restaurant, many times when we at the restaurant, it's like it's outdoor, it's near the beach. So there's always a seller, like a small children in student uniform, a little boys and girls coming walking to our table and selling things like candies, seaweed, or toys, something like that. For personally, for myself, right, I have like two dilemma. Like one dilemma is that if I don't buy what they sell, usually it's like overpriced. If I don't buy what they sell, I feel guilty. Like I'm not supporting poor children in the student uniform for their scholarship or education, something like that. Another thing I like think, oh, what they are doing here late at night, and they're supposed to sleep already because they might have school tomorrow, something like that. So I end up buying anyway. So like I was like, what Dr. Lim said is the shame and guilt are relating to the virtue, like thing that the society said, and the humanity in us, like we are kind to help other people, we are kind enough to be considerate and understand the necessity and the position of other people. So I was thinking, relating to Dr. Eddie too, because you mentioned about being guilt is not authentic, something like that. So in my mind, I don't want to buy the product from the children who sell late at night, something like that. But and in the other opinion, I think that okay, I should help them. It's not much. The money that I pay going back to me multiple, and it's compared to what I have, it's only little that I can help support to them, something like that. So I have to ask myself, like, okay, usually I end up buying them because I think that is the less thing I can do for other people, because life is short, so we have limited time available to do good for other people, to make them happy, to like maybe I'm the only one who buy their product on that day, maybe it's lighten their day or something like that. Because our King Lama Nai, he always said that never how you said, never disappoint people. You you may be the only one of their chance in that day that make them happy, something like that. I'm not saying that we are people pleaser or something like that, but but yes, please.
Oh, I want to give an example, because I do have a pretty good example on this. Like, for example, like someone came to me confiding, for example, that that she she's so angry with her group. She wants to leave it. Okay, it's a social group, and she's saying that I just don't like this group. This group is terrible. It doesn't have what I like and all that. So on the surface, it come out like that, as if she's not the group that she joined in the first place. She loved it, but then later on, she has this great dissatisfaction. And then so I asked her, why? Why has you don't like animals anymore? Why you want to leave the group? And she finally, after she felt safe, she said that it's actually not the group. She likes what she's doing in the group, but it is how the leader spoke to her about every time finding fault with her and saying that she doesn't do her job well. So it's actually that interaction that make her feel so bad about herself repeatedly, that she wants to leave. And then when she leave, she just give an excuse that is totally not really what is happening, but she had to say that the group is wrong, for example. So how we make people feel and elicit that kind of feeling of shame, through anger and all that, has its very vast impact. And sometimes organizations, you wonder why some organizations don't do well. And then they can employ consultants to come and give feedback on why the organization don't do well. And they can give very nice reasons like, oh, you need to improve your systems and processes. You need to have staff reward system and so on. But maybe at the end of the day, it's really how people, what is in operation? Is it the humanity that's in operation? we can still scold people, huh? But the scolding can be received totally differently. Yeah. So why? Because what is kicking into operation might be guilt and shame as a mechanism. The other one was really concerned about, so I was actually similarly angry with this person for doing some things wrong also. And I told her I'm really upset that it had brought us to this kind of situation. I told her I'm angry, but the way that I broached it was different. I said that, do you know that when you did that, um, you were, it seemed that you didn't quite care how you came across. Actually, I felt sad that you did that to yourself. So I asked her why she did that to herself. So I opened up a conversation, but I didn't like judge her, but I did tell her how I felt impacted. But the thing is, so this distinction is that we could communicate things and we could do things to manage outcomes, or we could impact outcomes or request something. But how we do it, what is in operation makes all the difference.
Sorry, I like to talk about something that clarifies things for me. Is that first of all, we cannot make someone feel something. Let's make that very clear here. The way we speak doesn't necessarily make someone feel something, or the way we speak make someone guilty, because we don't know that person's background, we don't know that person's moment.
Philosophically, I totally agree with you, because like we in consciousness we always say nobody can ever be hurt.
I just want to
Nobody can
finish what
ever
I'm
be.
saying, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I want to finish what I'm saying. And we're accountable for ourselves. If you or Leslie say something that I may feel insulted, I'm accusing and judging that you two are insulting me. It's a very subtle thing where in the interaction I observe myself, and I could take things personal or not, and I could take things personal and then feel guilty or ashamed about something. But the thing is, this is a balance. The way we speak, but the also the way we get things and absorb things. We are responsible, accountable for that. So if I say, Dr. Leslie, every time I talk to you, you make me feel so ashamed of myself. When I interact with you, I'm not proud of being who I am because you always say the things that I do wrong, and I feel guilty and ashamed in front of everyone. So, is Dr. Leslie making me feel guilty? Or am I making myself guilty by interpreting whatever she did? So, in terms of health, my dad used to say this to me: the best fish, the healthy fish in the ocean, in the salty waters, when you fish that fish and you eat it, that the fish tastes sweet because it's so healthy. But if the fish tastes salty, it's because the fish was unhealthy and couldn't be protected enough, so allow the ocean or the salt affect itself. So I think it's a two-way thing. It's like how we see the interaction coming and how we interact. Taking things personally or not could generate guilt on us based on our interpretation of what we heard. But also, we could talk kindly, but yet we cannot avoid what people feel, because authentically speaking, they will feel whatever they feel, not because we caused something or we made that person feel in a certain way. So I just would like to for us to observe on that, because that's
Totally.
also one of the things regarding authenticity, is that is being myself hurting other people. Oh, so I'm hurting people, or the way we are is being going through a filter, and people might be interpreting how we are in a certain way, or words that we speak, and then somewhere or somehow is causing pain, or they are generating pain with what was said. You know what I mean? But it's healthy to look uh in a present way, and aware, do we cause pain, or do people cause us pain? You know what I mean? What do you think, Dr. Leslie?
I totally agree with you, Dr. Eddie. I think that no one can make us feel painful. It's only us and how we interpret what them say or do toward us. Usually, humans are mechanics. How you say it? Machine of interpretation. We interpret everything that happened in our life. Actually, it's not everything is about us. So usually, I observe myself. I use consciousness. I'm aware of what's going on right now. For example, if I call my friend and she didn't answer me like for 3 times, 3 to 4 times, something like that, I would not interpret anything. I just send her the message that, oh, please call me back when you are available, something like that. So I didn't give meaning to it. Just be at present and wait patiently, peacefully, and happily, something like that.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very
Welcome.
clarifying. Dr. Julia?
I agree that we are ultimately the receptors of information, and interpretation comes from us. This is really like the basic premise of awareness, right? And consciousness, in a sense that we know that only we can put meaning to things. But all that being said, when we were talking just now about ourselves governing how we choose which system we want to operate, we are how then in that case, maybe it's clearer or easier to see it like creating an environment, for example. So as let's say a boss or a parent or something like that, we can create an environment that is less smoky or less toxic or less more kindly, so for people to be in. And of course the people there, we can say that, hey, um whatever I am is what I am, okay? I am full of foul language, I'm full of anger and frustration, I'm a volcano, that's who I am. Then you say I'm making you feel sad and scared. No, you are actually filtering, you are making a meaning, you're saying that I'm making you scared and all that. I'm not making, you are reading into the meaning. So okay, fine, sometimes life is like that, right? So the people are not trees, so it's like we are not trees, we will stay there for a while and probably try to be zen about it and say that, okay, this person is of this manner of being, his voice is louder, maybe he puts out more fumes as he's speaking, but you can stay there for a while, and if you don't want, you just leave, right? So you pluck your roots up, and you're not like a tree, you're a human being. So of course there are invisible roots that's rooted to a situation. Maybe you can't leave because you are getting paid. Maybe you're receiving money from a lover or something like that. You can't leave. Maybe you're receiving um your it's your mother. You can't leave. you can lock yourself in the room all you want, but you can't leave. So sometimes we know that, okay, who we are authentically, we cannot cause someone to feel certain way, but we do create an environment that is conducive or not for coexistence. I think, let's put it that way. So if guilt and shame is the operating factor, then it's probably the pollution causing instrument that makes communication, maybe then guilt and shame is a way of putting out the way that is being relate, that people relate. Maybe you set out the rules for relating. In a guilt and shame environment, messages get across by control. So, do we want to set out that manner of interaction in our relating, or we want to call it out, or if it doesn't work in being called out, then go and set up good communication elsewhere. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Lim. In my experience, usually everyone I interact with has a different nuance and color and world and universe. There are people I meet without any intent of or thinking too much about I'm gonna be empathic or I'm going to I don't know, I'm going to be kind. But then kindness just come out. Other people, maybe I don't want to be upset, but whatever they share with me makes me feel a bit blue in the interaction. Not they are making me feel this way. I just feel that way in the interaction. But honestly speaking, I don't think we have any control on that reality. It's just as it is. Like there are people we meet, we might not like them so much, but the interaction is great. It's very polite. There are people that we love, but we argue with every day, for example. So I think it's a bit hard to put any standards on that. I think, like we say, observe ourselves, observe as we're happening, observe the event, right?
Yeah. And to all the manifestors
Yes,
out
Dr.
there.
Leslie. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
Dr.
I just
Lim
very
said first.
quickly, I just say for all the manifestors out there, then this is what manifestation to me is, what it is all about. It's like what we are creating. So we can only be cognizant of what we perceive and what we create. So let's say then for me, then we will keep on creating a guiltless reality, hopefully. Okay, Leslie.
Thank you. Yes, I totally agree with you, Dr. Lim. It's like in manifestation, you are the creator of our own reality. So everyone is you push out. I think Navin Gondat, something like that, he said about this. Everyone is you push out. So you projecting everyone is about, everything is about energy. So everything that you in your thoughts is already been manifested, and uh, you're finding more evidence about it in your daily life. Like if you feel that this I am very shameful person, so you in your daily life you will find more evidence that you are a very shameful person, something like that. So I agree with Dr. Lim that we create a shameless, no, guiltyless atmosphere around us. And then I also believe that if we make other people feel shame, feel ashamed when they are with us, then it's not healthy relationship, because when we feel shameful, when we feel ashamed, we're hiding ourselves from the person who we are interacting with. So it's not really being genuine to each other. So that person will not trust us, because they worry that we will make them feel more ashamed. So I think it's good uh, that like we are really accept other people the way they are and they are not.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Um, Before we end this session, I would like to ask Dr. Lim, do you, as a trained professional psychologist, do you give counseling online to people? Or is it presential, like people have to be present in the same place? How does that work?
Of course, we do online all the time.
Okay.
And yeah.
So, if people want to reach you, is there a way that if they want to ask you anything, like,
Sure. Come, let's all be happy together. Just
and Dr.
send a
Leslie,
message.
do you train people anything about manifestation? Like if people want to ask you consultation on manifestation?
Okay. Before anyone get the wrong information, I'm not doctor. Okay. But if anyone would like to have some advice asking about manifestation, I got some information I can share to you.
Okay.
I would like to just say that you know, basically this self-accountability is another way of talking about being present, I think, for me. So we be accountable for ourselves, how we put meaning to things or not. And and also to be able to perceive the humanity in situations that are also smoky and polluted. And yeah, so the self accountability is in that manifestation space. I think what kind of thing we want to create in our life and what we want to see.
I think we are accountable for our manifestation, yes. And also, I think there's a lot of manifestation that we do unwillingly too, and objectified. So I talk about gratefulness also because sometimes things that happen and they don't seem very pleasant, and how to be grateful of that. But what's not being seen is that whether it's pleasant or not, we manifested that. We're accountable for it, and it doesn't mean that we didn't willingly objectively wanted to do that. There's no accident, by the way, in other words. So I wanna thank you, girls. If you wanna have counseling with Dr. Lim or training with about manifestation, Dr. Leslie,
Leslie.
And
trainer
with Dr.
Leslie.
Eddie, you can reach him
Oh,
on awareness and
uh,
also in coffee.
so thank you so much for the session today, and see you
Okay,
next
folks.
time.
Love you
Thank you
all,
so much.
doctors.
Thank you, doctors.
Thank you,
Good
trainer.
care.
ขอบคุณค่ะ Thank you so much. I learned a
Take
lot.
good care. And
Bye-bye.
and
Good
see you all again, okay? Bye
Have a
bye.
nice day. Bye
See ya,
bye.
darling. Bye.